It's a Dungeons & Dragons podcast that'll really make you think. We're spicing up the rules, mashing up the homebrews, and stirring up the debates. Add a little touch of our own, and you have Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. With your host, the Pirate Captain.
It's not because I took on an entire ship by myself and walked away unscathed just off good looks alone.
Chef Bolg.
I have in my rules for the original OG. Don't be a dick.
And Loke the Bard.
Lock the Bard bans all bards from his campaign. That wouldn't go over very well.
And without further ado, here are your hosts.
Yarr! I really love saying that. It is good to be back. I feel like it's been forever, and if you knew the secrets behind the scenes, you'd say it'd be forever. I am
Wait. I rolled a nat 20 to figure out that we started the show.
Ah, did you now there, buddy? You sound far away.
Well, it's because I'm sick, and I don't want to get you guys sick.
Well,
but I did send you some stew to eat.
Ooh, wait a minute. The last time you sent me stew, it had me own leg in it. What'd be that about? This better not have me other... Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, I still got both legs.
No, it's just some guy named Stu.
Ah. Oh, no. You didn't kidnap another guy, did you? Alrighty, guys. Welcome back. This is Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. And as always, featuring our good buddy, Loke the Bard. Loke?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, back at it again for another episode. It's going to be a good one. I think we've got a lot to say on this topic. It's something that we've had plenty of experience with in the past, but, as usual, when you listen to any podcast, you got to get all that stuff out. Make sure you guys go find us over at Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. You can find us on Facebook. All right, that's how you find us. You can email us, BolgandPC, with your gripes, bitches, complaints, anything you want to tell us about. We love to hear from you. We've actually had a few emails in the past. There's a lot of big stuff coming up, and we're going to get to that here in a moment. But tonight's episode, I just want to say, is sponsored by our friends over at God Mode Gaming, GAWD_MODE. You can go find them on Twitch. If you're looking for something you need to do, like some kind of new entertainment the story will change from week to week, go find those guys on Twitch at 9 p.m. Fridays. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. This is not pre-recorded, so that's how I get these little burps and stuff like that. I almost forgot to say, I am the titular pirate captain. Yeah, not going to forget my line.
Titillated.
Titular. Yeah. And as you can hear, our good buddy Bolg, he just got back from a recent trip, and then he brought all those diseases back down to where we're at, and decided to keep them.
Thankfully, just a cold and a sinus infection, not the Rona. Didn't get Rona part 2.
Hey, well, you can come give me the Rona. I could use a day off. Been running and gunning, trying to get everything going on. We got so much coming up. You can come actually. I'll let Bolg explain to you, because have we gotten any more word about Necronomicon?
We haven't heard anything, but we are in the talks to be there as guests. We'll be there one way or another, so you'll get to come and talk to us and maybe play a game or two in the gaming room with us. But we're hoping to be there as visitors of the convention in an official capacity. But we're still in the talks with that.
Oh, that's good. So if you guys don't know, it's going to be held over at it's in Tampa. You guys are going to want to come see us. We're going to have a lot of fun there. Even if we're not anything big, we'll probably go around just
even if we're just there as fans.
Yeah.
Come say hi.
Absolutely. So if you're a fan of us and you're in Tampa, make sure you come on out and see us. We may have some merch. We'll have some fun things to give out to you while we're there. But now for the fun part. The whole episode, the things that you guys out there listen to us for, which is surprising that we actually have a growing audience. I was taking a look at this the other day, and our audience is huge, and it's growing, and I can't say thank you enough to you guys out there. I appreciate everything you guys do for us, so thank you.
Really, yeah. When we started this, it was going to be like, hey, if we get listeners, that's awesome. And now we've got a ton, and thank you guys so much for being a part of this. It means a lot, really.
So, you guys ever, you're probably out there listening and going, well, get to the point. What's the point of tonight's episode? And Loke over there is getting ready to throw something through this glass window at me. But toxic players, man. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and we were starting to look through some of the stuff that players do, and not even just players. I actually was going to call it the toxic player episode, and I started thinking about it. There are toxic DMs out there. We've ran across our fair share of them.
Well, and toxic is kind of a very big blanket. I mean, we've got problem players, we got people who don't know their problems, and then we've got the people who intentionally are the problem toxic, the trolls, they're there just to make everybody's at the game's life difficult is what they find as fun.
So I guess that's a good point. So maybe we got to describe what we think
Yeah.
a toxic player is, and I'll hand that one off to me bestest buddy Bolg. Bolg, what would you call a toxic player?
A toxic player is someone who disrupts the flow of the game and generally makes the game not fun for everyone else at the table. And yeah, that can reflect back on the DM, and that comes down to an improper zero session, but we'll get more into that later. But yeah, it's a person or persons who make the game not fun for everyone else involved.
Okay. And what about you, Luke? What's your definition?
Yeah, and it gets into because I'd go more that they're intentionally making it not fun for everyone, because there are people out there who are just, clueless. You pull them aside and say, hey, this is causing problems, and they'll work on fixing it. And then there's other people out there who, their fun is making you miserable. Internet trolls, everybody knows the reason they do it is to get a rise out of the people.
I feel personally
Yeah.
attacked. No.
Yeah.
Well,
if you get somebody like that at your table who is intentionally making things unfun for, even if it's just one other member of the table, it doesn't even have to be the whole table. You get somebody there who's picking on one player in particular, and making it a not fun experience for that one player. That's a toxic player, in my opinion. Somebody who's there and just disrupting everything, making it not fun for everybody. Yeah, that's a toxic player. Somebody who, doesn't realize that the character voice that they're doing is annoying to everybody at the table. That's not really a toxic player. That's,
that's just
That's me.
that's a pillar of chaos if I've ever heard one, or a pillar of stupidity. That's a shot.
Yeah, I think intention is a big part of the toxic player.
Yeah. I have to agree with both of you guys. I absolutely agree that the toxic player, or even the toxic DM, the toxic person, is anybody that really is just there to, I think, troll your group. Because DMs can troll the group, and we're going to get into that. We have examples. I have a couple articles pulled up. We're going to have those listed for you guys. But I don't. There's no good toxic player out there. The moment you put toxic, it's like when you multiply anything times a negative, it's automatically a negative. And if you're ruining the game for people, you're turning off lifelong fans. You're turning off, new players, everything. There's so much to get into. I want to take a look at this list that we found. We have a couple of them, and we actually have a story. You know what? Let's talk about toxic DMs. I want to talk about this story first. Our buddy Bolg had found this one. He trolls through Reddit, but he's not a toxic troll. He's just a troll. Actually, he's an orc, but it's,
Fishing troll rather than
Yeah.
bridge troll.
Yeah. Fee, fi, fo. No, that's a giant. Anyway.
Give me money.
You would like money, wouldn't you? That's all you're ever after. But, all right.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got here's this story, and I'm going to try and paraphrase it the best way I can. This DM actually wants to nerf a player's character. Now, I think this is a bit of toxic. When I think of toxic DMs, this is the first thing I think of. When you're trying to micromanage your players, is a very good sign that you may be a toxic DM, and you may want to step back. And so what happens is this player has this fighter who ends up just being OP. They rolled exceptionally well. I guess they had some very good stats, and they also had really good racials as a half elf is what they are. And so they start playing through this campaign, and they were like, well, you know what? I'm going to be an Eldritch Knight, and it just starts working out, and they are just obliterating everything. Eldritch Knights are really good about that. They're very good. In my opinion, as a low level game, Eldritch Knights can be a little OP, and that's fine. But the DM starts telling them that you can't take certain spells, you can't do this, that when it comes to being level 4 and they get their ASIs, that they can't either increase their ASI or they have to put it in these stats. And it ends up becoming a micromanaging thing, and the player doesn't understand and doesn't get it. They didn't ask the questions early enough in the story. Eventually they do, and we'll link this link on our Facebook page as well. They go through quite a little bit. They end up going, I think, to like level 14 towards the end, and eventually they start asking their friends, hey, is he doing the same thing to you? What's going on with this? And you find out that none of the other players are actually having this experience with the DM. And it's almost like targeted harassment, I guess is a way to put it out. And my paraphrase, am I missing anything there, Bolg?
Well, no,
or Luke?
At the end of the story, it comes back and he has edited that, when he did go back and confront the DM, and it basically comes down to the DM didn't like the guy. And so the DM was definitely targeting him, trying to drive him away from his game.
Yeah. So it's quite a long story. I go recommend you read it. I think it'll say if you start seeing these behaviors, it's a good sign. Yeah. Any DM, as a DM, you're not there. If you don't like a player, you can do one of two things. And the one thing that I honestly would say, and this kind of works, I think this is kind of like a negative way of dealing with things, but I think it's a great way, is like I just stop talking to the players that cause me problems. I've been in games, we've been at the shop before, we have some players that are abrasive. They're not abrasive in a good way. You can be abrasive in a bad way. If you play a character that's just kind of like, you're a group of rogues and you have one paladin, you're going to expect a little abrasion. No, this guy was just abrasive just to be abrasive. And I just stopped talking to the dude. Like, absolutely. Like, the conversations, if there had to be an interaction between the two characters, I'd interact. I'd do what I had to do, but I kept the conversation. And eventually he just got to the point and was just like, all right, cool. I guess I'm not welcome here. At least with me. Other people were kind and did stuff. But that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, and we've seen behaviors like this story before where you get a group of 8 people together, 6 of them you get along with great. That one person you just don't rub each other the right way. You don't want to give up the group and leave and move on, because finding a good, regular, steady D&D group is hard. I mean, it's hard to find a good group of people who work on your schedule so that you can be, at the game every week, every month, whatever schedule of game you're looking for. It's hard to get that set up.
Oh, absolutely. We had to cancel our game tonight. Like, everything's got to be pushed to the side.
Yeah. We got a couple, Bolg being sick, and a couple other people had some personal stuff, and all of a sudden this week's game's canceled. I mean, so it's hard. And so if you've got a group of 6 people who you really like, and that 7th person you just rubs you the wrong way, I could see where some people would be tempted to just I push this toxic, but you don't want to play with me. You're not having fun. Why?
But how are you gonna puch them out though?
I'm not that.
You're not. I know you're not. Yeah, I'm asking the Air Force guy to be confrontational.
No, but like I said, I've been in games where they've done this to people, where it's every time there's a sneak attack, it's done against that person they don't like. Every time there's a treasure, it's not what fits that character's build. Every time there's a storyline or story hook, it's not something your character's been. It's all this stuff. It's the DM has targeted to make it less fun, to make that person less likely to come back.
Yeah.
And that sucks, especially if you are that person that's getting targeted.
Yeah, and one way to break that off, if the DM has a problem with the player, from the offset, if it's something that grows naturally throughout the progress of the game, that's one thing. But if it's like, why is this person at my table? Don't let them play.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you are the kind of person that is going to apply these tactics, you probably shouldn't be the DM for that group.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. There should not be targeted harassment to any of your players. You're the DM. You're honestly the moderator of your group. You have to be willing to stand in and say, hey, we're going to address this, because sometimes you may be able to like. This is more of a huggy-feely kind of way of dealing it, but sometimes you can actually work it out, figure out where the root problems are, maybe fix it. We've had players that have definitely come and gone that could have, it probably just would have helped having a conversation. But I don't.
And some groups are not for everybody. I mean, if sometimes that toxic person might need to find another group. Maybe that's,
Yeah.
I mean, our group isn't for everybody. We're a kind of fun-loving, like off-the-wall type adventurer group. Serious players don't get as much out of it because we're off, doing whatever the hell we want to instead of focusing on the story at hand and role-playing seriously and all this other kind of stuff. So we've had that in the Adventurers Guild. Players come in and they expect a serious game like Adventurers League, which is different. And when they don't get that, they get some silly game about going into a brothel to find who's been, stealing underwear. Then they don't come back.
Guilty as charged.
Not the type of game they want to do.
Well, I mean, and I feel like we're also looking only at the players, because they're honestly just based on the law of averages, you're more likely to have a toxic player than you are to have a toxic DM. I mean, but how are you guys going to deal with a toxic DM? How would you guys deal with it? Like,
it comes down to you don't play in that DM's game.
Yeah, I guess they have it easier because you just walk away. But
and if you're a DM who you're constantly losing all of your player, you're not keeping any players week to week. It's maybe you're the problem. Maybe it's not them.
Yeah.
Am I the problem? No, it couldn't be.
Yeah.
I like toxic DMs. Man, because we've had them.
Yeah.
I have been a part of these guys that have come to at the shop we used to play at. We're all thinking of him. I can tell you, we can all see his face right now, and just some of the negativity he brought to the group and stuff. We are a more lighthearted group. We try. I'm going to tell you, I've tried to have serious characters with this group. It is nigh impossible to be the serious because someone's going to make a dick-faced pirate joke or something stupid like that, and you're all going to bust up, and you've just lost all your composure, and now that character's a goofball.
Yeah. Somebody's going to create a bard that carries around a giant dildo mace.
We used to be respectable.
Yeah.
And that comes from our normally serious player. He usually plays fighters and stuff like that, but his next character, I can guarantee you, wants to have a dildo mace.
Yeah.
I with toxic players, man, and toxic DMs, like I really don't want to be signaling out the players, but law of averages, you're more likely to have a toxic player than you are a toxic DM. I don't know. What this guy did, I think, was absolutely egregious. You shouldn't be harassing your players. They're your players, man. You're telling them the story. We've had plenty of DMs on in here in the past, and their biggest thing is they love their players. You as a DM, you don't have to love your players, but you at least need to like them. If you don't like them, chances are they're not going to like you either. They're probably going to have a bad story. They're going to have a bad time. So make sure you're talking to those players.
Yeah, and toxic players can be a little easier to deal with if you are, because it comes down to a confrontation. You go to that player and it's basically an ultimatum. Either you fly straight or you leave the game. The toxic DM, you're kind of walking away from the game, which leaves the toxic DM still playing with other people who he could still be toxic with. So it's a little more complicated with the toxic DM because you, short of finding another, I mean, you can talk to them about it and maybe they'll get better. But if it's an issue that it's one of these guys who don't like women in his game. No matter how much you talk to them, the girls aren't going to have a good time at that game.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that was I'm not one to sit here and wave the flag of the different groups out there, but this guy was definitely I wouldn't say he should not have been around women just because of his whole attitude on things.
And that's like I said, that's a real world example. I mean, he's one of those old school players who doesn't get with the modern times.
I don't even say you have to be modern times, because you're gonna have guys talk. If you have a table full of dudes, things are gonna happen when the dudes talk about it, and that's okay. I'm not here to knock you down, But, even there, some dudes have, there's a level of where you're probably not going to cross, or a line that you're not a level, but a line you're not going to cross. And this dude just, every time he had the chance, just would take a rock and just throw it way beyond the line. You're like, come on, man, really? Like, we were having a good time until you decide that. And it was, like I said, sometimes we had, like, dudes-only conversations, and it was fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's even sometimes, like, dipping a toe over the line just to get that little edge to something may be okay depending on the group. But if there is that line, you should just generally not cross it. Yeah. I mean, it's like I say in the opening, don't be a dick. If you cross that line, you're pushing yourself into that dick territory, and you're alienating other players, you're alienating the DM, and you're making yourself toxic.
Yeah, but like I said, a lot of it has to do with intention too, because I've mentioned in the past where we'll put subject matter into our games, to make our villains bad. There are some stuff that we put into our games, slavery, assault, those kind of things that make the bad guy seem bad that some people don't want in their game. And they'll feel that's going to be, crossing a line. I don't feel that's a toxic player. I feel that's something you got to communicate about in the zero session and know, hey, this is the kind of game, this is the kind of level, this is kind of language where, we use foul language, when we play our games. This isn't a PG game. This is,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, to me, is not being toxic.
No.
Being toxic has to have that intention where the DM or the player is going
out of their
way to make somebody not have fun.
No. I mean, 'cause it's a game. And if you're not having fun at a game, then don't play that game. But I don't want people to sit out there and think that you shouldn't want to play Dungeons & Dragons. It's a game that's brought us all together. That's how we ended up starting this wonderful podcast. And talking about issues like this.
Yeah, and, we've all played a very, very long time. So the odds of us running into these toxic players is much greater than some newbie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
The vast majority of players that I have played with over the years have not been toxic players.
Yeah, I could say I could count on a hand.
Yeah, they are a very small minority of players. The odds of running into one, especially on your first game, it is still a roll of a dice. It does happen. But don't let that scare you out of playing, because it is a rare thing. Most D&D players come from the kind of open-minded background enough that they're just looking to play. It is a game. They're there to have fun. Most people don't want to be a in-person troll, except for the kind of troll that you play in D&D as a monster type. Not the troll like the internet troll.
Well, you're just taking the fun out of all this. Yeah. I think of a quote. It's a fun quote from, as everybody probably listens to this know, I'm a big One Piece fan. I think of Saul from when you go to the storyline of Robin's past, and he was like, no one in this world was meant to be alone, and you shouldn't be alone as a player. Like, if you feel alone at a table with a group, you need to take a step back. Either you could be the problem, you may not be the problem. Just because you're not fitting in with a group doesn't mean you're toxic. I want to say that now that I think about that, we may be telling people, oh, well, if I'm the one that's feeling bad, then I may be the toxic one. That may not be true, man. You may just not. You got to find the group that fits you. Take time. Join multiple groups. If you got plenty enough time, go out and find groups. You can go to Roll20 and apply a bunch of places, and there are great players out there that'll let you join in on their games and be a part of it. So find those out.
Yeah, and there are toxic traits that you may not even realize that are toxic traits. Like always wanting to be a part of whatever is going on, even if you're not directly involved. That's a toxic trait. You're taking somebody else's moment and turning it into yours. I'm guilty of this. I know I am, and I've tried hard to curb it just by sitting back and letting others take the lead. But I also like to be involved and be part of the story, and that's a toxic trait of mine that I'm trying to push back. There's also the rules lawyers in a more loosey-goosey game.
Slow down there, Hero. I'm so glad you're mentioning this, old pal, because you're probably reading from the same list I'm looking at. I mean, we all have the same prep sheet. Thank you, Mr. Producer, for setting us up with this prep sheet. We're looking at, he's probably reading this list that I have, and we're going to post this on our Facebook and everywhere else. It is the top 10 toxic behaviors that can derail your Dungeons and Dragons game, and he's already hitting 2 of them. Hog the Spotlight, and what was the other one that he mentioned? I'm sorry. The Rules Lawyer. But I want to start from I want to start from top 10 and work our way out. See what we think. How do we think this is toxic? Maybe this is something that definitely could be avoided, or is it not toxic at all? And I want to start off with number 10, and then we're gonna get back to the Hog the Spotlight, which is your center of attention. But number 10 is antagonize the DM. Their whole goal in life is pretty much to go out there and disrupt. They're not being an agent of chaos. They're just being a dick. All right. And when I say this is they're maybe yelling at the DM about something. They're trying to distract them from what's going on in the game. They're not. They're not a player that's trying to maybe cause a little bit of chaos in the party, make them go the wrong direction, or maybe kind of take some loot and leave some garbage behind. That's what I'm saying. But when they antagonize the DM or they try to bring the worst out of the DM, I actually believe that is a toxic trait. And the only way I can tell you to deal with a player like that is if they're going to continue messing with your DM, get them out of your party. You're not.
Well, and this also goes, the player who knows your DM has a pet peeve of, I don't know, rolling the dice ahead before he asks you to roll for it. And yet you've got that player that's still sitting there every time doing that action, whatever it is, that is the DM's told you in the 0 session, told them every time, this is a pet peeve, please don't do that. And yet they sit there and through the whole game, roll, and
they're just waiting for that good roll to say that they have the good roll.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where the DM's sitting there trying to tell the story, trying to get things set up, and they're doing something that just to get on his nerves and put him in the bad mood, just because they think it's the troll, and they think it's funny to get a rise out of him. And that's one of those things. If you got to talk to the guy, and if
a lot of these solutions are going to boil down to talk to him, so I want to kind of take that one off the table and see what other ways you have.
Step 1, talk to. Step 2, kick out a game.
Those two. This escalated quickly.
Yeah. I mean, other than those two traits, there's not when you get with toxic people, it's just like dealing with toxic people in your everyday life. You either got to talk to them about it or you got to get them out of your life. Those are really
I'm going to be honest though. When you try to talk to some of these some players like that, or even just people in general, high chances are they're not going to change. People are set in their ways.
Yeah, and in those cases, if it's something you can't, it's something truly toxic. Life's too short. Why would you put yourself through that? It's maybe you got to move on.
Yeah. What say ye, Bolg?
Yeah.
Well put, buddy. This is our brains of our operation right here. He's technically in control of this entire thing. That's why we put his name first.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm not dumb. I'm stupid. There's a difference.
Is that what it is? We'll move on then, if that's what you want to do.
Well. So, yes, and intentionally pissing off the DM, not only is it a bad move from you're playing this game with people that you presumably like, you're pissing off your friend, basically, but you're also just painting a target on yourself for the DM to retaliate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strategically bad move.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the assassin comes up behind you every time that something, an assassin attack.
I'm feeling very targeted again. What are you guys saying? Nothing? I like it.
Crickets.
Yeah. Oh, let's move on. This one you were talking about. This one I've seen. I understand that everybody has a part in the story, but not everybody is a part of the story.
And this one's hard because you get excited, you want to play the big fun events, you want to be part of. I mean, you're part of the game for a reason. But sometimes some events, situations did not put you in the position to be part of. If you split up, half of you went downtown, half of you went uptown, you're going to have to wait while the other half takes care of their business. You can't just jump in and be, I'm suddenly there.
Yeah, we're talking about hogging the spotlight. That one player that, all of a sudden the downtown group has come across a very roguish pirate captain who is now trying to lead them on to an adventure to take on another group of pirates. And all of a sudden, that one guy who's in uptown, miles away, or blocks, whatever nautical mile you're using, and all of a sudden they're there. And it happens. And I know I can actually tell you a few players in our groups that are pretty nasty about this one. I don't think this is a toxic trait. I think this is just something that just because you want to be in the center of the spotlight doesn't mean you're a toxic player.
Yeah, and it like I said, if you get excited about it, it's a good hook of the DM is what it really comes down to. The player's been hooked and reeled right in, and sometimes they're going to reel over the line from where they were supposed to.
Yeah. A good DM is definitely going to no, but I got to give it to you. If you're as a DM, you're already tracking our game is 8 people. So you're trying to keep track of all 8 and leave it to your friends. Your friends should definitely be the ones that will hold you off. And I know I've come out and said, whoa, you're not here. You cannot be a part of this conversation. This is a conversation. This one definitely is. It's very. I don't think it's a toxic behavior, but it's something you can definitely.
Yeah, and that's where it goes back to that intention thing, because now the way we've seen it most often is not a toxic behavior. However, that guy who every time somebody's about to speak, the interrupting cow, they'll
moo. Yeah, sorry, that was your cue there, buddy.
Oh, what?
What?
Sorry, I was killing a cow.
Oh, yeah. That's where it came from.
Yeah, that would get annoying really fast. Where every time there's a conversation, he's got to stick his 2 cents in before the person that was at it. Yeah,
I don't think that's a toxic behavior. And like I said, this is crack.com's article, 10 toxic behaviors that'll derail your game. I don't think that's being the center of the spotlight's easy to fix.
Yeah. Like I said,
it's easy to fix unless they're doing it again to be a troll and to be the guy that's just pissing everybody off to do it.
Yeah, it goes back to the intention, because doing it because you're having fun and everybody, you're excited about what's going on, is not a troll. Doing it because you don't want Joe to be able to speak before you speak.
Yeah,
that's toxic. I
think that's I can see where that is. I think. And I tell you, this one's honestly best fixed by the other players. Yeah. And usually the other players will fix it before the DM will ever have to.
So that brings up a question. Can you be unintentionally toxic? Can you be doing these behaviors without realizing you're doing them?
Yes.
But I don't think you'd be toxic in that case. You may be dumb.
You might just be an idiot. Yeah.
You may be uncouth, socially inept. But I don't think if you're unintentional, it's still toxicity.
Yeah.
It could be toxic up until the point that you've realized it and corrected that behavior.
Yeah. Now, I think if you've talked to you about it 3 or 4 times, you can't claim ignorance anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with Loke on that one. I think if it's been brought to your attention, hey man, this isn't your conversation, and the 3rd or 4th time you're still doing it, we're probably going to take you out back and beat you with a stick. I mean, that's what I would do. All right, moving on. Number 7, argue the rules. Here's going to be my stipulation on this one. Arguing with the rules with a DM, yes, you're a toxic player. DM in the end has the ultimate control. They can say, hey, no, we're not doing this, or hey, we are doing this. Arguing the rules with other players, yes, that is toxic.
See, I don't know. I like the rules.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that is an element of the game that I guess maybe it's because I'm more from the old school where it was less story, more the statistics, more the fights and the battles and the adventure. The adventure was more than the story. You know what I mean? I'm not explaining it very well, but maybe that's where it comes from. So I like the rule lawyer, because if you can convince me to change my mind on the way I'm interpreting a rule, I have no problem with it. Now, the person who has been shut down, that yes, you're wrong. Here's where it says it's wrong in the book, but you know what? I'm the DM, and I'm overriding that. I'm doing it this way.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Then you're done. You shut down.
Like I said, if you're arguing with the DM about certain things is not fine. And the reason, like I said, is because you're the god. You're God. You're the moderator. You're God. You're doing everything for your world. And you've changed rules that are written in the book because, hey, look, this is causing issues with the game. Now, if you have that new player that comes in from the outside, it's like, hey, pirate captain, I heard you play D&D on Saturday. I was like, yeah, come on, you can come play with us. They come in and they're reading the rules and they go, well, the rules say this. Well, hey, look, this is what we say. But the rules say, okay, look, I understand that, but so when you argue with the DM who says their things, that's one thing. Now, we have very good instances where Baka and Felix, they're very good they know the rules in and out. They talk about them all the time, and they actually help correct players on different things and to make sure that they're playing the game right. That I find is to me is fine, because you're trying to help somebody better understand the game, because we still have to play by the rules that are written that you have put out.
In the end, this is still a game. Even though there is no winner, it is still a game. You go play soccer and somebody picks up the ball like it's rugby and runs through the field. Well, you're not playing soccer anymore.
Yeah.
So the rules are part of the game. They can be important, and I don't think most rule lawyers are toxic.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I agree with you.
They could be selective rule lawyer.
Yeah.
They only rule lawyer when it's to their advantage and not to the party's advantage, but their own personal advantage is the only time they ever argue a rule. Well, maybe that, but it's one of those situations where it's a very specific situation. I don't think a rule lawyer in general is toxic.
No, I don't think so either. Like I said, I think you have to find that stipulation, and my stipulation is usually if you're arguing with the DM, chances are you're the toxic player. Like if you're always arguing with them about rules and stuff like that, chances are you're a toxic player.
Yeah, and once the judgment's done, you can argue your day in court as a rule lawyer before the judge that is the DM, but once the judge makes that decision, case closed. That case is over.
Yeah. What say ye?
Yeah, basically. Just
wise words ever put from the mouth of me bestest buddy.
Yeah, my epitaph. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But I think rule lawyering can be a good thing at a table, but if it is done to excess, then yes, it is toxic. I like to play by the rule of cool, and if you're just going to sit there at every turn I make saying no, you can't do that based on the rules, that's toxic. Especially if I brought it up to you and saying, hey, we're going by the rule of cool here. If I like it, I'll roll with it.
All righty. Moving on. I actually skipped this one, but I want to come back to it now. I just, to me, this isn't even, if you stop caring and you're still playing, are you really playing?
Yeah,
I didn't want to spend too much time on this one, and that's kind of why I wanted to skip it. But
that's less toxic, more a waste. I mean,
yeah, you're wasting your own time.
You're only toxic to yourself in that case, because why are you there if you're not having, again, it's a game, you're playing for fun. If you're not having fun, maybe it's not the game for you.
I like this one because this one is kind of like near and dear to me, because I've had characters that have needed to go off and do their own things because I have a weird schedule that keeps me from being a part of every game. And that is going rogue. And it's not being that you're the rogue, but it's always going off to do your own thing. I don't get the benefit of being able to play every weekend. I work multiple jobs that keep me quite busy, so I play when I can play. And I think that if your character is always running off to kind of go and almost create your own adventure within the adventure, that's kind of toxic because you're derailing it from the entire group. You're just trying to make it. It kind of goes into that hog of the spotlight deal, where you're kind of just like, I don't know, making it all about you again.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that it's the bigger the group, the more this hurts, because it's when you're playing with 3 people and a DM. For one of them to go off on their own and do something for 10, 15 minutes of that 3-4 hour session, not a big deal.
Yeah.
8 people, one of them taking up by themselves a big section of that session, even if it is only 10, 15 minutes, that means everybody else at that table, all 7 other people, are sitting, waiting, and just listening to what that person's individual adventure was. And that's, you yes, sometimes story calls for it. Sometimes the DM set it up specifically to do something like that. But if it's constantly, and especially if it's the same person every time,
Yeah.
that's where you're getting into that toxic line. Where
That's a toxic player. Like because a lot of these kind of feel like you're looping back into that one. I think if you are constantly trying to be the center of attention, you may be a toxic player. Like it's good to want to be the star of like the hero of a story. But somebody once put it to me here in radio world was like, not everybody's going to be a host. It just doesn't work that way. Not everybody's host material. Some people are sidekicks, and they're amazing sidekicks. They're just not host material. And I think that's something that people need to know. Not every character is going to be the star of the story. Yeah, I make great side characters because I'm constantly in and out. And
that's one of the advices I would give if you're playing with a big group. Maybe design your player to be more of the support, the best friend, the
butler.
Yeah, the butler, the Sam Ganges,
Sam was the best.
Yeah.
He was the real hero of Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
by the way.
Exactly. I mean, great character, very important to the story.
He was the hero of the Lord of the Rings.
But he is not that person that's the spotlight through the whole thing.
He is the hero, not the protagonist.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe design your character to be that kind. Because with 8 people, not all 8 of you can be the protagonist. There's just it
doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So maybe help the DM out.
The way to think about it is the group as a whole is the protagonist. The individuals within that group are the heroes that make up that group. If one of you goes off and does your own thing every time you stop somewhere or every time you get into a battle, whatever, then you're separating what makes that whole, and it's no longer, you're trying to make another protagonist instead of just having one group as the protagonist of that collaborative storytelling thing.
I don't want to get this confused with, when you go into a town and everybody kind of goes off to do their, not everybody's walking into the same shop at the same time trying to buy the same things. No, you may have a rogue that needs to go refresh his poison kits or a druid that just wants to go spend a little time meditating. That's different.
Yeah, especially down times and, non-adventure related stuff. But, when the whole party's going to the dungeon, you don't go jump on your ship and sail away. It just...
Why are you... What is it with you tonight and me? Huh? What did I do? I feel like this is personally attacked. And you know what? Fine. If I'm going to be personally attacked, I'm going to personally attack somebody too. Because number 5 is kill everything. I mean, you would sleep with everything, but this one's more towards Bolg, so.
The murder hobo.
The murder hobo, man. Like, you should never... trying to kill everything in a story definitely ruins the... Everybody knows my favorite words when it comes to playing these games is consequences. There should be consequences for your actions. And if you're just going around killing people because they looked at you funny, or you're just trying to get XP because you think that, and there's actually a great way to solve this, and I'm going to let my buddy Loke talk about it because this is how he fixes murder hobos.
Well, one of the things I strongly disagree with in the basic setup of D&D is if you look in the monster manuals and the books, like town guards... or guard captains even, are such a low CR that they are not a threat to most player characters. So if you don't have a deterrent in town that keeps the, level 5 fighter from just murdering the shopkeepers and taking what they want, what's the consequence? What's going to happen to them? Now, if your average guard is a level 10 guard, and your, guard captain's even higher, well, he might give a second thought before he, goes in and murders the shopkeeper.
Yeah. Well, you've done something I think that really helps out with this because we have played with DMs that are they don't know how to deal with the murder hobos, the guys that are just trying to go in and it's like, oh, this town, they're here handing out stuff. I'm going to kill the flower girl. And you're like, whoa, bro, she's just 12. She's 12.
Yeah.
But you've given experience, for the role playing, for doing things outside of murdering people, which I think actually helps out. So if you're having issues with people killing everything, try to give them more experience for not killing something.
Yeah, that's it's basic behaviorism. You give You reward the good behavior and you punish the bad behavior.
Yeah.
The basic system of D&D, especially the older systems, were set up that you only got experience for fights.
Yeah.
Now with the tiers of play, I like to make sure each tier of play has a experience goal. Although lately we've been using more benchmarking and it's just easier.
Yeah. I actually know
keep track of, but
I know a good guy that's really good about benchmarks, and we're going to have him in here because he is actually going to be a Pathfinder expert. And I've worked that one out, so we'll have him here in a future episode.
Yeah.
And I think benchmarks are great. I think, honestly, it'll help with the murder hobo issue.
But one of the things, like you said, I used to do is I would say, okay, this session, they should have 10,000 points of experience for this session. 1/3 of that will be from the combat, so I would design my combat using that pool of points. Well, exploration. Here's 10 points in town. Each of these points in town are worth 100 experience points if they go and visit these things.
It's like hitting, like exploring the city in a video game, and you find like all the little hidden achievements.
Yeah, finding the little hidden achievements gets you more experience for the exploration part. And then the role play part, that's one of those things where, as long as they're participating, I usually went ahead with that.
Yeah.
Because that one's a little harder to judge, but you want to reward them for actually taking the time to talk to the player, to the shopkeepers and the quest givers, and actually role play with each other in character. If you don't want them just killing everything and moving on to combat, well, you need to give them a reward for doing the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
yeah, and some players prefer that type of thing, combat heavy, killing everything they come across. That's really something you have to do, like hammer down in your zero session. Like, hey, we're going to be doing some role play, some exploration type stuff. If that's not going to be your thing, this may not be the game for you, because you can't just go around killing everything. You may kill an important NPC, and the rest of the players are going to hate you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like the difference between playing a game like, Diablo versus playing a game like, Skyrim versus playing one of those old text-based RPGs from back in the old school days. I mean, different people, different stuff. Different people like different stuff.
I mean, yeah.
But if you're the DM and you're setting it up and you want them to be heavy roleplay, you got to reward. And then if they go murder hobo, you got to slap them with the stick.
Murder them. I mean, what? No. Alrighty, moving on. This one I don't think is toxic. Sometimes you just last minute, it's canceled the last minute or the chronic lateness. Look, man, people have lives to live.
Yeah, life happens. I mean, like I said, we've canceled our session
tonight.
Yeah. People get sick. People, have family getting married or whatever and have to go to a wedding, so they won't be able to attend that session.
And people are sick. People have jobs, man. I mean,
jobs, yeah.
Working here at the radio station, I'm constantly kind of like on call. I got a lot of guys that rely on me to come by and fix problems because I live so close. So it really helps. So I think this was something almost like a give me. They just needed like an extra little mark. I don't think chronic lateness. Like I said, most people understand life happens. If you got the one guy that's always showing up late, it's probably because he's coming from work late.
We've got one of these in our group, who we plan around it. Now he lives kind of far away and actually has been remoting in, so we haven't had the problem recently. But he has that reputation of being the late player, and we start and
he just shows up.
He shows up.
I feel like he's out. Now it's time for you to be personally attacked. Bacaw. Yeah, it's Bacaw. This one I think is, like I said, some of these I think we're a little bit more right on. And this one I think is if you're doing this, it's not about winning, right? We can all agree. D&D is not about winning. What are you winning in this game? You got to the end of the story. It's okay. Cheating. I think if you cheat in this game, you're pretty much a low-life toxic player because what's there to cheat, man? Yeah. Some of your best stories, and I was talking to a friend of mine while I was gone a couple weeks ago about some of the best memories you have in the military are the ones that suck. Like you sit there and you think back about, having to fill up sandbags, but you had that one guy that was like wearing the sandbag as a hat or something, and you can always recall the story in perfect detail. And I think that if your roll gets messed up, like this is your heroic moment and you roll a nat 1, there's no reason to kind of like cheat and go, oh, it was actually a 12, because of math. But and granted, there's nothing actually that says a nat 1 is a failure. That is actually a general rule that people play by. But I think when you're cheating at D&D, like you're honestly hurting yourself more than you're hurting yourself. You're actually being toxic to yourself. That's kind of cheesy.
There are great moments that can happen with a nat 20 or with a success, But there are also great moments that can happen with a nat 1 or a fail. I have a really good story of a character I was playing. We were getting ready to smash this blue dragon that was sleeping, and my character was so confident. He'd been rolling really well. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go up to its butthole, and I'm going to punch it right in the butthole. And, rolling that 1.
Well,
yeah. And so I got my hand stuck in its rectum as it was killed, so I got defecated on. So that was,
the things that we come up with in these games. I like cheating. What has it ever gotten anybody anywhere? Cheaters never prosper. I remember hearing that a lot when I was a kid. What are you getting out of it? What are you getting out of just trying to be the best at this game instead of, I don't know, having flaws as a character, not being good at something? That's one of the things that you've heard us talk about in the past, why I think we need an expanded skill list is because it's just so generic and you're kind of just like good at everything. And that's not fun to me. Yeah. That's kind of lame.
Well, and some of the best stuff comes from failure. I mean, there's the classic meme where he tries to romance the orc or persuade the orc or whatever, or hit the orc, and I'm blanking on how it goes, but he winds up
you try and push the orc off the ledge. Instead, you caress his back. He looks uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He is uncomfortable now.
Yeah, so I mean, some of those situations don't come if you're rolling that 20 every time. Those silly.
Yeah.
And sometimes goes back to the spotlight hog thing. Sometimes being the you missing sets up your buddy for his moment of glory, where he may be the one that comes in and smashes the orc in the face instead of.
And he gets to be the hero.
He gets to be the hero for that minute. Yeah.
I was just in Boston this past weekend, and my wife and I went to this bar where they had a Constitution save shot, where you had to roll a d20, and depending on if the roll was high or low, you got a different shot. Well, I rolled a nat 1, and I was the first one to roll a nat 1 in that place that I'm aware of. So she mixed me a special shot just for that nat 1, and it was glittery, it was awesome, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't tapped the die, roll over. Instead, I just let it lie as it did. So, awesome things can happen from shitty rolls.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, there's nothing in the rule book that actually says that a nat 1 is an automatic failure.
It depends on what it is. In some cases, it does say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We're gonna come back to that eventually. Not tonight. Maybe not tonight.
It's not all cases, but there are certain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna rules lawyer with me now? You're gonna be a toxic player?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and we're not pissing on DMs that fudge dice rolls. Sometimes to keep the story moving along, you have to, because you roll that nat 20 that would have killed a player first thing in the combat. You made it an 11. It still hits, but it's not deadly.
Yeah, I don't know. Kill your players. They need to learn. This isn't just anybody's game now. Moving on. Not playing by the sacred improv rule of yes and. I've never heard of this rule, but I was reading through it, and what it is, the way I guess this guy who wrote the article put it out is it's when you have a player that's like, well, I'm this mighty knight that can go on, and somebody goes, but you're a scrawny guy. Like either they're looking at the player and basing the idea of their character off the player. Like if you think about YouTube series that make, they do the what is it? The Staghorn Productions is the big one that has like all the songs and the skits and stuff like that, and they're actually playing and their characters look like them. Maybe okay. Niggle Ward is a big fan of these guys, and when they're players, when they're sitting around in the room and doing the game, they look like themselves, but when they actually go out and they are actually like doing the scene of them in the game, they look just like themselves, right?
Yeah.
So
they're like a New Zealand. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Okay,
like a New Zealand YouTube.
Yeah,
they're very funny. Like
one girl's a barbarian. The tiefling
she's a wizard, and she's got like a pyro. She's a pyro.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that I don't think this is like intentionally being toxic, but I think this is something that you can't have. If you are looking through the eyes of a player to another player instead of looking through the eyes of your character, and treating everybody like they're the player. Obviously, we've got friends that are a little bit bigger in nature, but if they're a rogue, I don't expect to see them as themselves. I expect to see them as the rogue they are. Like there may be a halfling. None of us are halfling size. We're not that way, right?
But a lot of people, it's easy to you imagine them as a big halfling, a big barbarian, whatever. The physical traits, very dexterous, can take a beating, good constitution. The ones that get hard are, when you have the dumb person playing somebody with a high intelligence. Or, an ugly person playing somebody with a high charisma.
Alrighty, buddy.
This is the
third time tonight. What the hell do you got against me? I don't think I'm ugly. I'm just bald. There's a difference.
Yeah. You stole his woman.
Oh, that's true. He steals everybody's women. Hell, he even stole me underoos one time. But you have to be able to look through. I'm not sure, and those of you who may read this article, come on out, tell us what you think. But I think the way he's putting this is that you're looking at the player and you're not role playing. Is essentially what I think of it. It says improv, but I think it's role playing. You're not actually playing the character; you're playing yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's actually. I think that is toxic because now you're ruining the reality that, maybe another player is engorged into this fantasy and they see themselves as the knight, as the rogue, as the wizard. I like to see is actually my characters, I see them as prim and proper, and I can tell you I do have examples of this now that I think about it. I've had very prim and proper characters that are actually highly intelligent, but I know certain players because they see me as the goofball dummy that I can be, and they treat my characters like that. And that does get annoying because it's like I'm trying to hold this role play narrative that, hey, I'm this pristine butler. Like I went to all the stuff, like I'm very high maintenance and stuff like that. And then you got somebody in there and they're laughing and they're calling me an idiot. And I'm like, but my character hasn't done anything dumb. All right. He said the things that he should be saying. And that does, it gets really annoying. And I think this is a toxic trait.
Yeah, and that goes back to the players you're playing with. Sometimes they use that outside knowledge. That same person that's using that outside knowledge, their knowledge of you, is going to be the one that's, I know a werewolf is vulnerable to silver. I'm going to use silver on it.
Yeah, metagaming is definitely.
It's the same.
That's not even on this list.
No, that's on another list. We're not going to be able to get to that one, but that one we'll still share.
I think metagaming is one of the more toxic traits you can have at the table.
Absolutely. Actually, you know what? So let me tell you. So this learn nothing thing is the last one on this list, but I want to get to them. I'd rather go into the metagaming. The last one on the cracked article is a character which is still doing the same dumb stuff that they did at level 10 as they did at level 1. They're not learning from themselves. Their character's not growing. But it's hard to really say what growth is because what you're doing at you can go from the level of 1 to 10 in a matter of days versus going, the levels of 1 through 10 in a matter of months or years, and that's kind of where you learn. But I'd rather say that's not really toxic because I think that's
and that's
very
also,
situational based.
Yeah, that's also very it depends on how in depth you went with the backgrounds, how much role play if you're a table that just goes combat to combat, they're not going to have a lot of character development. If you only play once a month, right? We've been playing for 3 months, but yeah, that's 3 sessions.
Exactly. So I like I said, this one I think is kind of like vague. It's the top of their list. I think there's something that just it feels like they thrown in because it's actually like the shortest of all their stuff. I'm not saying. Let me find out who wrote this article. Let's see. Carolyn Page. Okay. This is only about a month ago when this article was, but I think that there's something there. But maybe we'll reach out and see what they have to say about it. But I want to get into the metagaming. That one I think is absolutely probably one of the most toxic behaviors that you could ever do in a game, because it ruins the narrative for other players. Players that are trying to sit there and they're encroached into the fantasy. They want to see the world through their character's eyes, and you're coming in there and you're going, well, you wouldn't do this because, or I'm doing this. Hey, you explain it, Bull, because I'm having a hard time with this one.
So, I can think of one person at our table that does it a lot, but luckily we shut him down a lot. But basically, it's when you go into a scenario or a situation and you're using player knowledge that the character wouldn't have. Say you're fighting a group of werewolves. As a player, I know silver works best on werewolves, but my character wouldn't necessarily have that knowledge, especially if we're not playing like a Ravenloft game where that knowledge would be fairly common. So going in and going, I pull out my silver coins and use magic stone to hit them with it. That's using your player knowledge to gain an advantage over your friends. Especially if this encounter was something that the DM intended for, you to run away from and not actually engage in combat with these werewolves yet.
Yeah, but there's also the example where, like you say, where you split the party, half the party went uptown, half the party went downtown, and yet somehow the uptown party knows exactly what happened, word for word, what conversations the people that went downtown had, because you were sitting at the table with them, and you heard them. Well, your character wasn't in the shop to know that this merchant gave you a special deal, or,
Yeah, I think it boils down to really just ruining the narrative for your other players. Your other players are hyper. I don't want to say hyper important. That's a little egregious. I think your other players are important, and if you're goes, what it circles back into, hogging the spotlight. Right. You're back to it, man. Like half of this Carolyn Page, I just found her. You can find her at Jacuz It Tubs. So that's her on Twitter. She actually does a lot. She's a writer at Cracked. We're going to reach out to her because there's some questions I have about this. But I think that the metagame, the Hogging the Spotlight's the big one that she made on this one, and everything just seems to revolve around it. If you're doing any of these behaviors, you're really making yourself the center of attention. Yeah, and
it's not just making yourself the center of the attention isn't the problem. It is always making yourself the center. Like, this may be the plot line that was from your backstory that is intended for you to be the center of the attention.
And if you're metagaming,
right.
I think you're trying to put yourself into situations. You're trying to win,
right? Eventually,
so yet again, now you're cheating again.
Now, we found a pirate ship. Pirate captain's one of our party members. I'm going to take that pirate ship and not let the captain have it.
Number 4, buddy.
Lock
in one
the
episode.
bard steals the pirate ship so that the pirate captain can't get it.
There's nothing sacred to you.
That's being, the spotlight hog. Whereas, this storyline obviously was meant for the pirate captain. He should have been the one that got the spotlight that time.
But you knew and you're saying is like when it comes to
Lock
metagame.
the bard being so flamboyant and out there and everybody wants to pay attention to him because he's such a great guy, can't help but steal the spotlight.
Yeah. It's terrible, man. I don't know, because I kind of got back to hog the spotlight, and it really is about metagaming. But I think when you're metagaming, you're trying to control the game into your favor. You're trying to make sure that that you always have the inside information, and it's a hard trait to break sometimes because you do know so much as a player versus what your character knows. But if you're a ranger and you spent your life in the forest, there's high chances you're not going to know what to do in the city. You're not going to know the cultures of the city. So when you come up and you're like, well, I greet this guy. Well, how do you greet him? Well, I send out a handshake. Well, maybe you're in a rogue's town and they don't really want to do handshakes because guess what are up your sleeve? Hidden blades, right? So they don't want to shake your hand, but you don't know this, and now you've offended somebody. But that's kind of ruining it with metagaming. It's basically cheating, essentially.
Yeah, and that goes back to the cheating part where it was, you're
I give her this. Her
You're
list
not winning the game.
I didn't care for a couple of things on this list, but her list was pretty spot on.
Well, yeah, and I think even the ones we disagree with, I think, are more of an interpretation and a wording issue more than a disagreement. So
we still got a few minutes left for this one. We may be able to get some in this list. There are. This one's actually from nerdwritenews.com. It's the worst D&D habits to stop now. I see this, and it's like this person that starts the whole their thesis of this one is like, who's the worst person to play D&D with, and you got the class clown, the metagamer, which pops back into it, the distracted player, the attention whore, and I like how it's the attention horde, but it's actually attention whore is what it's supposed to be. And according to Critical Role. So the one I want to get to is the according to Critical Role one, because most of these other ones we've kind of talked about. I don't think the class clown is one. I think if you're talking about a class clown, sometimes
it's kind of the one that has to be the center of attention. It's just a different
maybe
different mentality how to get that attention, but it is still just.
I think it's having the idea that. Sometimes you need comic relief, even in a serious campaign, because you need to be able to like break up some serious moments. Like, you guys have just fought this long, hard battle, and your characters are exhausted, and the one that's done a lot of work, he just sits down and he goes, "All right, let's do that again," and everybody kind of like bust out and laughing because you just kind of need that because it happens in real combat.
Yeah, but
like
I wouldn't call that person the class clown either, though. I think the class clown is the one who is.
Center of attention.
Center of attention, more, oh, look at, I put a pie in this guy's face. Huh, look, I teabagged this monster that we just beat. Oh, yeah. I think that's more the class clown than.
Yeah, I could see that. But this is the one that I want to get to on this list, the one I want to talk to, the according to Critical Role. And honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons that this game surged in popularity. It came back really because of Stranger Things. These other guys had been doing some hot ticket items with the Critical Role guys have been doing it before Stranger Things come out. But when Stranger Things came out and there was a big hit, everybody wanted to play D&D again. Everybody went out and they saw Critical Role and their success shot up. And then now you have a bunch of these YouTube channels and things, even like our friends over at God Mode Gaming, they play the game online for everybody to see, right?
Yeah, and Critical Role, I mean, they do a good job of showing what the game can be like.
Yeah.
They're not showing what it has to be like.
Yo, they have modules and stuff created around them, and that's great. That's cool. But I've heard this argument going to a couple places and talking with certain other people that they have players that always refer back to Critical Role. Yeah. And I think that's you're basing your whole worldview off of them instead of actually looking at the books and looking at where your character's at. Because if your world is not based off of theirs, they're going to have a different experience. Right. Goblins in their world may be evil versus goblins in your world may be your friends. They may be good people in your world. Not all goblins are created equal unless you're the Goblin Slayer.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations where, you got a lot of new players who their only exposure to this game prior to sitting down at that table may be that they watched Critical Role. That may be where they learned to play, is by watching these games and have never played in a live game before they sat down at your table. Can you really fault them when they say, oh, well, when I saw them do this on this is how they did that? You can't fault them too much for that if that's their only exposure they've had. Some of us who've played, since the 1980s.
Ye be old there, buddy.
Who've played multiple versions and different editions and, have played third-party games and all, have been playing role-playing games our whole lives. Yeah, we have a different experience pool to draw on than somebody who, like I said, they saw it on Stranger Things, went and learned to play by watching Critical Role, and now they're sitting at their first live game ever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold that against them if that's what they use as their reference.
I mean, we all have that one person who knows one thing about one thing, and that's all they can reference about. I don't think that makes you a toxic player. I don't think that really is going to... That's not something you may need to stop. You may need to stop it, but I don't think it's going to derail or have issues with the games. Like, I think it's
I don't know if it's like 5 or 6 sessions in and this player is still going, but Matt Mercer did it this way, or Travis Willingham did his character this way. You know, not everyone's Matt Mercer, not everybody's Travis Willingham. They played their way on Critical Role, but you do have these veterans who have been playing this the way they've been playing for years and years and years, and they're not going to suddenly shift gears because Critical Role came out.
Yeah.
You know?
I believe that Critical Role has done a lot of good for the game. I don't think this is like, if this is the one bad thing from Critical Role, I'll still take it. I don't think it makes you a toxic player, even if you're 5 games in. Like I said, you could be a new player coming to this world created, and you don't know any better. Think about it like a 3-year-old, man. A 3-year-old doesn't know any better. They just know that their dad's the greatest hero that of all, that he can take on anything. They don't know that, he probably stubbed his toe and was crying like a little girl.
Yeah, but the point is where it comes back to my earlier point. At some point, you have to go, okay, they're not going to do it this way, and not just keep going with, hey, this is how Critical Role did it.
Yeah,
if you keep doing that, that's when it becomes toxic.
Critical Role, sometimes they're too good, so they're setting some unrealistic expectations. They are all professional voice actors. Every single one of them on that show is a professional voice actor. So, yes, all the NPCs that their DM does, all their character voices are going to be spot on, awesome, very immersive. They have professionally built models, miniatures, for every combat it's all pre-laid out. You're not going to have that in a home game.
No.
It ain't, yes, you contact our friends over at Red Dragon and you might have a, mini battle map for a session, but unless you're, rolling in the dough, you're not getting a custom thing every single week you play.
No.
Sometimes you got to use your imagination.
Are you saying I got to use my imagination to play a game that's based off your imagination? I need to get that as a
rainbow,
soundbite.
yeah.
Imagination. Alrighty.
Hey, theater of the mind is an entire way to play this game.
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to have any of that. Sounds like so.
And that's the thing. That is the only downside I see to the Critical Role people, is the unrealistic expectation that some new players have. I don't see them. I mean, if you come in and you use them as an example where you learn the rule, I don't have a problem with that. But then again, like I said, I'm not the one that has the rule lawyer list problems either. So
yeah,
I'm always open to talk about the rules, and that's why we have this podcast. We like talking about rules and debating those kind of things. So maybe we're the odd ones.
Maybe we are the odd ones. Well, with that being said, it's time for us to go ahead and get out of there. I want to go ahead and throw it back out to our friends. Tonight's episode was sponsored by our friends God Mode, God, GAWD_MODE. If you need some entertainment tonight, or, well, it's already Saturday, so we're on last night, 9 p.m. every Friday. You can always find them. They'll be playing up a new story. They all have different stuff going on. We had Nick on from there. We will have more coming at later. That's how you can tell this yet again. It's not a pre-read spot. I probably have to read these a little bit better. God Mode Gaming, you're going to want to go find them. They'll be your entertainment for Friday nights. With that being said, does everybody have anything else to say?
I want to throw a quick shout out to Pandemonium Books and Games in Cambridge. They had a great selection there.
Oh, cool. Well, all right. Anything for you, Loke?
No, I'm good.
All righty. With that being said, make sure you find us on Facebook, Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain, and you can email us at BOLGG'S. With that being said, goodbye, folks. Bye, Bolg.
Bye.
We appreciate you listening to Chef Bolg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything, featuring Loke the Bard, of course. Make sure you go find us on Facebook to see what old concoctions Bolg is cooking up in the kitchen. And if you want your emails read, then email us at bolgandpc@gmail.com. And as always, happy adventures. Yarr.